you'd hear a discussion about Facebook and MySpace, about MySpace being, bling and fashionable and beautiful and colorful, it being gaudy and ugly and, and design-wise terrible. Facebook being elegant and simple and easy to manage and private. Facebook being boring and lame and a control freak-esque, right? And that these divisions in language were very much correlated to where kids stood on a socioeconomic level. And I was like, ooh, that's really interesting. But what one of the teenagers who saw my essay pointed out was that it wasn't just about that. It was about a shift that happened from MySpace to Facebook. Which teenagers shifted from MySpace to Facebook and why? And one of the things that she pointed out is that that shift also had a socioeconomic division in it. And that shift had to do with a rhetoric of safety, a rhetoric of privacy, a rhetoric that fit into what in the United States we actually see as similar patterns in our old style rhetoric, and not actual practice, but rhetoric, of white flight. And so I was really startled by looking at this, and I wrote a paper on this that I'm happy to share with whoever. So I was trying to sit and sift through all of these languages and the ways in which people were talking about it. And mind you, one of the things I love, teenagers now are like, oh, the MySpace people have totally invaded Facebook. And you're like, whoa, okay, what does that actually mean? How do we work through this? Socioeconomic divisions are tricky because the thing is that by and large, we've assumed that only certain groups of people have had access to technology. Access is now, as your organization has pointed out brilliantly, gone pretty mainstream. But the participation is variable in all sorts of complex ways. And what we see, especially when we look at network structures, is actually very homophilous. We only see certain worlds, and we're often not aware of how to actually interpret and make sense of the worlds that aren't part of our position. And especially, as researchers with degrees, many of them, often with 3 letters, right? We are in a very different position than a lot of the participants that we are actually observing. And I think that's actually where we get back to some of these privacy conversations and some of these questions here, because, in some ways, these decisions about how to navigate this require skill, right? This goes back to Esther Hargitay's fantastic work on socioeconomic divisions, but it also goes back to all the experiences that you have in your social norms and the social worlds that you live in, and that these are extremely variable. And again, I point back to Twitter's trending topics as a way in which we're seeing this. I find the race and class conversations on Twitter are really fascinating. And yet we keep coming back in the news and in research about this is a place for news and information sharing. And yet if you actually look at a lot of the data, that's not how people are using it. So the other big question is the questions you're asking when you ask into the research, how much does your own position, your socioeconomic position, your race, your ethnicity, your nationality, your gender, how much of these inflecting the questions that you're asking? And one of the things about ethnographic research is that the role is to actually start with the people and figure out how to go up from there.